Welcome back to Gero Dynamics. Okay, so this is going to be my last video in this group of videos. This is going to be a political video. I just kind of want to lump a bunch of stuff into this one video and just kind of do it all at the same time. If you're into that, cool, stick around. If not, I ain't mad at you. Head out and we'll talk again very soon, very soon. Okay, so I did a post about this on my Facebook. I've also been trying to not do too many political posts on Facebook, but periodically I do, and so this is kind of based on a post I posted there. So if you are on my Facebook and you watch my videos, this is kind of similar to what I had talked about on my Facebook. All right, so there's a thing going on in Venezuela where it looks like the election was probably stolen. The new candidate should have won based on exit polling and other types of polling and other information out there. But the incumbent, who's more of like a socialist, and the new candidate who's more not, I wouldn't say libertarian like Javier Milei. Why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden? Anyways. I don't think he's that far like libertarian, but he's more, of a freedom type of guy, not so much the socialist aspect of things. And it sounds like he should have won, and maybe there was some shenanigans and they stole the election. And so now we have a bunch of people calling for, a review of the election. A lot of people included from our politicians and our media, who are more than happy for our elections to be stolen, but not so much for the for other countries' elections to be stolen. So yeah, a bunch of hypocrisy going on out there, calling for transparency in the counts and things like that we know didn't take place in our elections. And even though I feel like our election was stolen leading up to 2020, not so much what happened after. I do know that there was a bunch of not transparent activities that took place, a bunch of shady things and counts that seemed weird and numbers that changed that shouldn't have changed, or especially when they changed, like during the middle of the night, those sorts of things. A water pipe that supposedly broke that didn't break. Big camera case full of votes being dragged in the middle of the night, cardboard being put up in the windows, all of those fun things. Of course, my dog immediately. Anyways, but I don't think that that's what stole the election. What I think stole the election is the manipulation of social media and the media leading up to the election, the blocking out of the laptop story and other stories, and the constant attacks on Trump versus the propping up of Biden. I think that's what led to the election being stolen in 2020. But anyways, that's a whole different topic. Well, not completely different, but basically hypocrisy on their part for being cool with all that, but questioning what happened in Venezuela, especially considering they supported the former leader who is now saying that he won this election too. Anyways, moving on from that, the media likes to definitely tilt in the direction of whoever the Democrat nominee is, and that's what we're seeing now still, forever and ever. Kamala Harris is being propped up. They're trying to say that she is going to be a great president. We all knew that she was not going to be a great president. The whole reason why it was so hard to see Biden step down or to move aside is because she would become the president. Everybody knows she's terrible. Everybody knows she is not very bright, and she is very unlikable, and she has a corrupt background, and she is not going to be the one to lead us into a prosperous future. But they're trying to cover for her as best they can. They're hiding her past. They're hiding the corrupt stuff she did while she was the DA, while she was a prosecutor. They're trying to hide the fact that she did some shady things to get into the positions that she had. She did some positions to get into the positions that she had. And that she was extremely unpopular, did not poll well leading up to 2020, dropped out of the race almost immediately. I think after losing, no, I don't think she lost California. I don't think California had happened yet, the primary. But she just was not, she was losing in California in the polling. She dropped out, and then Biden ended up selecting her as his running mate. Then fast forward to this past primary, they decided to really kind of not have a full primary. Biden didn't debate anybody; he just was the presumptive nominee. They skipped right through the primary process, and then decided to throw him to the wolves to have a debate with Trump, which he handedly lost. And then they're like, okay, well, we're just going to install Harris as the new candidate, and they're trying to act like this is the most democratic process, that without them democracy can't be saved. And that's the only aspect of our government that is a democracy or is democratic, is the voting for our representatives. And no one has voted for Kamala Harris. No one wants to vote for Kamala Harris, but now she's going to be the Democratic Party's nominee. We're going to get to that a little bit more here in this video. But the party's going to push her. They're going to install her. And so people are going to feel like they have to vote for her because they can't vote for Trump. And so, that's what we have going right now. She was put in charge of the border. They're lying about saying that she wasn't put in charge of the border. She was. That term border czar was more of a mocking thing anyways. No one is saying that she was officially named border czar. That's not the title she has. She's the vice president. But they called her the border czar, basically saying that she was going to be put in charge of this problem and she was going to fix it. And it got worse, and she was terrible at her job. Terrible at everything, basically. And the media is trying to cover that up. They're trying to downplay all of that. They're trying to cover up the assassination attempt on Trump. They're trying to, at first, they were trying to say, oh, this wasn't an assassination attempt. That didn't happen, and that was in the immediate aftermath. So keep that in mind. They were just saying, oh, there was just noise, or oh, he got spooked by noise and fell down and had to leave the rally. If you guys remember that, in the initial reactions to what happened, they tried to pretend that there was not an assassination attempt, and they tried to make it sound like it was some other. He bumbled and made a mistake and fell down and got scared. So that's what it originally was reported as. Then they tried to downplay it by saying, oh, okay, well, there does appear to have been shots fired, but it was obviously staged. The whole thing was staged. He they didn't hit him, and he fell down, and then he got back up and he pumped his fist and he yelled fight. Obviously all staged. That was the next narrative. A lot of people still believe that narrative, by the way, because when you put these narratives out in the media and social media, people just stick with them, and they still believe to this point that it was completely staged. It wasn't. It obviously wasn't. There was obviously a bullet that was shot, or multiple bullets that were shot. One person died. The shooter died. The multiple people in the crowd were hit. Trump was hit. We'll get to that in a minute. And so there was obviously someone tried to take his life. Okay, moving on. Then they tried to downplay it, right? They were like, okay, yes, there was an assassination attempt. Yes, it was not staged. It was a real assassination attempt. But he wasn't even hit by the bullet. The bullet hit a prompter, a speech prompter, and the glass hit his ear. So he wasn't even hit by the bullet. Like, as if that makes a difference, even if that was what happened. How would that make a difference with someone tried to shoot him? They missed, but he was still injured in the process, regardless if it was glass or bullet. It doesn't matter. But then you have the head of the FBI who's supposed to be investigating these things, who's supposed to be helping to protect the president and the former president, and is supposed to be unbiased and is supposed to be just worried about law enforcement, going in front of Congress and saying, "Oh, there's some doubts if he was hit by a bullet." Long after, like, even that conspiracy theory had been put to rest for the most part, he says it in front of Congress as if it's a possibility. Oh, it's a possibility, not a possibility. That, was never a serious possibility. The next day, the FBI puts out a statement that says, no, there's a bullet hit the former president, President Trump. And he was hit by a bullet, not glass, right? That's the official position of the FBI, even though the head of the FBI the day before tried to downplay what happened. And so that's what happened. You have them, and people still believe it. Still believe that he was hit by glass, not by a bullet. Because these narratives don't go away when you put them out there for media and social media. They don't go away. People believe them. All right. And then, now they're trying to remove the whole thing from your news feed. They're trying to remove it. If you try to do a Google search, it's almost impossible to get these things to come up. Trump in general has always kind of had that problem, especially if you're searching for anything positive about the man. But just kind of in general, if you try to search up Trump, you're going to see a bunch of stuff about Harris and before that Biden and his other opponents, that sort of thing. And now specifically with the assassination attempt, if you try to search it up, you can't find it. Well, can't is a strong word. It depends on when you look and how you look, but it's awfully hard to get it to come up in normal searches, or it was. That may be changing because attention's being brought to it, and when you bring attention to it, when you shine light on it, then they come out and they fight against it by trying to make you, oh no, you're being tinfoil hatty. That's conspiracy theory stuff right there. We can question whether he was actually shot by a bullet, but you can't question anything otherwise. Conspiracy theorist. All right, moving on. All of this, while they're trying to be the ones who say that they should be able to limit your freedom of speech due to misinformation, while they're spreading all of this misinformation. So the hypocrisy of trying to take away your freedom of speech so you can't spread quote-unquote misinformation, but they are completely allowed to because they are the elites and they are the people in charge. That's what's happening. All right, moving on. All right, apparently the talking point for J.D. Vance is he's weird. That's all they got. So their talking point is he's weird. The talking point should be that, he went from being someone who was a never Trumper to someone who supports Trump, and then Trump selects him as his running mate. But they can't do that because that actually kind of goes with the narrative that's kind of a big thing right now. I am also one of these people that's included in this. I did not support Trump in previous elections. I've never voted for Trump before. This general election will probably be the first time that I vote for Trump. And there's a lot of people like me. He has a lot more support this time around. And if you shine a magnifying glass on that by saying that J.D. Vance is one of those people also, it validates people's opinions. Like, well, so his running mate didn't support him and now has changed his mind and supports him because, he's proven himself. Well, then it's okay for me to do that too. Libertarians, members of the Republican Party that just didn't want to support him until now. These are all people who have changed their minds and are allowed to change their minds and move on to supporting this man who they previously did not. And that's why they can't do it. So what they're going to do is they're going to say he's weird. Keep in mind, this is who J.D. Vance is. J.D. Vance is a man who was a Marine. He enlisted. He was a Marine. I think he went to Afghanistan. I'm not 100% sure about that. He wasn't like a long term because he's only 39 years old. I don't think he retired from the Marines. I think he did his term, whatever you call it. I'm forgetting the word. Anyways, my nephew actually just enlisted in the Marines. He's got like a deferment to finish college, and I'm very proud of him, by the way. He's going to finish college. He's going to get his bachelor's degree. Then he's going to go into the Marines in 2027, I believe. And so he's already enlisted. He did his oath of office type thing. They might call it something different. I can't quite remember, but he took the oath, and he's going to be a Marine, and that's I'm super proud of that kid. Great musician, and super intelligent. And what he has decided to do is he has decided to go finish his college degree, get to play music until 2027, and then join the Marine Corps, probably going into the officer program. I would imagine he's going to have a degree. He's a super smart kid, but also with a goal of maybe continuing his music career and playing with the Marine Corps band, which would be amazing. Hold on. When I was younger, I also wanted to do that. I was overweight though, and so I didn't. I'm not going to be one of those people that was like, I almost enlisted in the Marines. No, I didn't almost enlist. I wanted to enlist, but when I found out that I had to lose weight even before enlisting and going to boot camp, so I knew in boot camp I would lose weight, but when I found out that I had to lose weight just to be accepted, I gave up. So I'm super proud of him because he's doing it big and he's doing good stuff, and I'm very proud of him. Anyways, going back to this story, J.D. Vance. He was in the Marines, like not a career guy, but he did it. He did something that very few people do. He is a lawyer. He went to law school, Yale, I think. Yale. He went to law school, became a lawyer. He's an author. There was a movie based on the book that he wrote about his life, I think. I still haven't seen it, and I think that's where a lot of the weird stuff comes from, where he's talking about like his personal experiences or whatever. But he wrote a book and had a movie made about it. And then he became a senator. This guy is 39 years old. He's younger than I am, right? Not a lot younger than I am, but younger than I am. And he's a senator. He's going to be the vice president of the United States of America. And I mean, honestly, as much as we like to look at people like DeSantis as the future and Vivek Ramaswamy, I think he's more likely to be J.D. Vance's running mate. That'd be cool. Looking forward to that in 4 years, because they're friends, but they're both from Ohio, so maybe that wouldn't work unless he moved. Anyways, that's a whole thing, whole different topic for a different time. I could see them running together though, because they're friends too, on top of everything, and that'd be super cool to see like two friends who I believe they went to Yale together. They're both from Ohio. Yeah. Anyways, super cool story. Hopefully that happens. Anyways, moving on. They're trying to call this guy weird, right? And we've got Kamala Harris as the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, and whoever she picks as her running mate, I don't know. Probably will be pretty normal guy. Maybe the governor of Pennsylvania, Shapiro, I think his name is, or possibly. If you want to go more weird, Booty Juice. We'll get Vice President Booty Juice in there. That would be weird. But no, I think it's probably going to be Shapiro, although Shapiro's Jewish, and a big part of the Democrat base is not a fan of that at all. So we'll see. We'll see how much they want to cater to that base. Anyways, moving right along. The crazy thing is the media and the Democratic Party oftentimes have the same exact talking points, and you can hear it word for word. Hold on real quick. Robert? Can you let the dogs in? Yeah. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, so dogs are bothering, and wanted to let them in. So I don't know. You could probably hear the scratches. It's probably pretty annoying. So we'll let Robert let them in. Bruce will come running over here right now. He may make an appearance. He's coming right to me. He's under my. Yep, here he comes. Oh no. All right. Okay. We love Bruce. Oh wait, maybe no. Sitting down. Okay. All right. Moving right along. But yeah, so the Democratic Party and the media often have the exact same talking points. It's not even like a conspiracy theory anymore. It's not conjecture. This absolutely happens very often. You can watch these these like video compilations of everybody saying the exact same thing, both politicians and media. It's obvious that it happens, and it's ridiculous. That the Democratic Party and the media are so in bed with each other. All right, moving right along. So what would be weird? Maybe he wouldn't be weird if, and let's go through some of these. He's weird because Trump picked him. That's what they think, right? But he wouldn't be weird if, he had traded sex for his career advancement, was a corrupt prosecutor, thought rape was sexy, had a mentor in the KKK or Weather Underground, sniffed kids and used the N-word on national TV, and then claimed that black people weren't black if they didn't support them. Had a daughter write some questionable stuff about, showering with him at an age where it was definitely inappropriate to be showering together. Got a BJ in the Oval Office, had a lot of people die around them suspiciously, and had an extremely close relationship with a pedophile ring. Yeah, maybe all those things would make him not weird, right? JD Vance, you got a lot of work to do, buddy. All right, moving on. Apparently, completely abandoning the democratic process of our republic is the only way to save democracy. And so they've talked themselves already within just a few short days, or a week or so, have already talked themselves into believing that Kamala Harris is the Democratic choice. No one has voted for her. Will she get plenty of votes in the election? Absolutely. Is she going to lose handedly? Absolutely. I'm kind of interested to see when polling comes out, when they start really looking at RFK and Kamala and Trump being all on the ballot. Once we know for a fact that everybody's on the ballot, I really want to see what it's going to start looking like in some of these blue states. Like, are they going to split the vote like to that degree where we could see Trump taking some states that you wouldn't think he could, like New York? California's a long shot, but if we push it to RFK, maybe, or RFK could win it, but more than likely Harris is going to win these states. It just is going to be interesting to see that build up. But I think that Trump is going to win almost every swing state, and it's going to be very one-sided. That's my prediction of it. But she's totally the democratically selected nominee of the Democrat Party, and she's going to save democracy, all the democracy. Anyways, apparently only the Supreme Court needs to be held to any sort of ethics or term limits, because they made some rulings that Dems don't like. If you would just add Congress into the term limits and limited ethic guidelines, they would probably get national support for a constitutional amendment, which is what they would need, right? They would need a constitutional amendment for any sort of term limits, especially on the Supreme Court, who has a term of for life, faux life, as the NWO used to say. But yes, they would need a constitutional amendment. There's no way they have the support for it in the manner that they're trying to go about it, but they're going to talk about it anyways. But if you actually went out there and made a case to the people and saying, hey, this is what we want to do, right? We want to have term limits for all politicians and judges, right? I could see that happening. I could see that if you include Congress in there, you include federal bureaucracy, you say that, Supreme Court is still just one term. You're not going to be running for re-election as a Supreme Court justice, but you could say they could only be Supreme Court justice for 10, 15, 20, 25 years, whatever they set that at, right? So you're only the justice for, maybe 24 or 20. Make it 20, and then that's 5 terms, 5 4-year terms of a president, and then a new president will nominate their replacement after their term is expired. Or, if they retire before that, or if they pass away, obviously they would need to be replaced, but the term would be for 20 years, right? You could get that passed, but only if you lumped them all together and you said Congress also has a term limit. All right, moving right along. Let's see here. Um, Ethics. So, really, if you have term limits, ethics are less of a problem. But if you want to throw some ethics in there, definitely take a look at some of the financial things. If you're in Congress, this is not so much for judges, although judges, I could see including ethics that say that judges can't take gifts, that sort of thing. I could definitely see that being a thing. As a federal employee, you can't take gifts. Sorry, I got a message. Anyways, you can't take gifts as a federal employee. So if judges were ethically required to not take gifts, I could definitely see that being a part of it, right? But Congress should be the same way, and Congress should not be allowed to do individual stock trading using insider information based on the laws that they are going to pass. And they shouldn't be able to become mega millionaires because they are able to do better at the stock market because they know all this inside information. That should be illegal. It kind of is illegal, but for some reason Congress gets away with it all of the time. And it's not just a Republican or just a Democrat thing. It's all of them. So yeah, I could definitely see putting that in there as well. Although if we have congressional term limits, that would not be such a big deal. All right, moving on. Let's see here. All right. If they're going to do the congressional or the judicial, or sorry, the constitutional amendment, right? We could do a constitutional amendment that include in this amendment the size of the Supreme Court. We do not want the size of the Supreme Court changing. We don't want people using that as a tool to get their way, right? So just establish the number at 9, which it currently is. Establish the length of the term. Establish that every 5 terms, 20 years, the judge steps down and the new president nominates a new Supreme Court justice, which would be the same process it currently is. The president nominates, the Congress approves, and that's what you do, right? That could be the path forward, and you have 9, and that's it. 8 standard Supreme Court justices, and then the head guy, which is escaping me right now, the title. Anyways, and then if someone passes away or retires prior to the end of their term, we'd have to figure out if we want to start the new 20-year term or if we want to nominate somebody to fill the remainder. I would think we would just start a new 20-year term, that it doesn't have to be at the end of the term that you get a new one. It could just be like, okay, you're the new Supreme Court justice and you get to be the Supreme Court justice for 20 years from now, right? That sort of thing. Anyways, but that's the specifics of it, which could be worked out. Okay, so cleaning up the government, right? There's a couple of things that I encourage, and I think I've done kind of some videos about this, but there's some things that I think that could be done to move forward with this country, and improving the country, some of which are constitutional amendments, some of which are not, but let's just kind of go over these. I just kind of want to touch bases on some things that I've talked about before. Repealing the 17th Amendment. This is another thing that would help reduce corruption in our politicians. It would help reduce the influence of money in politics and in the government, by having the states go back to electing the senators, right? So as the representative aspects of our government, it's supposed to be the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives represent the people, based on population, and the Senate represents the states. So each state gets 2 representatives. That's what was supposed to be. That's what it was when the country was founded. The 17th Amendment was passed and made the senators be elected by the people, by a majority of the state, right? So, the people in each state get to elect their 2 senators. But previously, they actually represented the state and they were elected by the state legislatures. So the people in the states elected the state legislatures, so elected the people to state legislature, and then they elected the senators. So, as far as the will of the people, it was seen through the state legislatures and the House of Representatives in the federal government. We repeal the 17th Amendment, we go back to that. You don't need a campaign finance office, as Thomas Massie pointed out, if the senators are elected by the state legislatures. So then, money would be moving into the state legislatures to try to influence them. But still, at the federal level, senators would not be influenced by the money. It would be it would be the state legislatures, which maybe some things could be done to help improve that. But either way, repeal the 17th Amendment. That's important. A balanced budget amendment that requires zero-based budgeting and priority spending. I've talked about this at length in multiple videos, including some very long ones. I'm not going to go into detail about it right now, but we need to have a balanced budget. We need to get rid of this debt, and we need to have spending reduced across the board. And you do that with zero-based budgeting, not by just reducing spending. You have to start from zero, know how much you have to spend, and then budget accordingly, right? And then you could do priority spending in case the budget, like in case the tax revenues are more or less than you anticipated, right? That's how that works. That's how we budget as a household. That's how the government should budget. We need a constitutional amendment for that, and I say that should be passed, and we could make that something that helps fix this country. My preference would be to eliminate the income tax altogether and just finance that budgeting through other aspects, right? However, that's probably never going to happen. So again, optimal, eliminate the income tax. But if we have to have an income tax, it should be completely simplified. They should simplify the tax code, reduce all or remove all loopholes, just get all of them out of there, right? Because as long as there's loopholes, you're going to say someone's not paying their fair share, right? It doesn't matter what the tax rate is if someone can go around the tax rate and eliminate all their taxable income with quote-unquote loopholes, right? So you have a set rate for taxes that you pay on any sort of income that you have, and then you have that taken out of your checks or whatever, or if you have to make estimated payments, but you pay that, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's what you owe. If the government and you have a disagreement about how much income, then that's where the audit process would still come into play. But as far as how much you owe, if you all agree on the amount of income you have, there should be no questions. Obviously, I think that should be a flat rate. If we're going to have income tax, we should have a flat rate. However, because if you have a flat rate, if you make more money, you still pay more in taxes. So your fair share is still more than someone who makes less money than you. It's not like everybody owes $100 in taxes, and so someone who makes millions, it's less. No, it's a percentage. So say it's 10%. 10% of $1,000 is much less than 10% of $1 million. So they still pay more. They pay their fair share. That's what I think. However, I would even be willing to concede a slight progressive step of that income tax. I don't think it should be there, but if that's what it takes to get this passed, and we want to see 10, 15, 20, something like that, based on, income brackets, I'd be okay with that, But you have to lower the tax rates, reduce the loopholes, and you're going to see tax revenues go up. You really will. It happens almost every time. Usually the tax revenue is based way more on GDP than it is on the tax rate. So as long as we have a healthy economy, tax revenues will increase, and rate is not even a great factor in that. It's not even one of the biggest factors. It's mostly GDP. Anyways, that's a whole different video that I've done before, and so I'm going to move on. All right. If you bring our military home, have them defend our borders and coast, you will drastically reduce the military budget. It's one of my disagreements with RFK. We agree on that principle, but he then wants to take that money and spend it on other things. I think that we don't have that money to spend on other things. We reduce the military budget, that reduces spending overall, and then so if we were to do the balanced budget, then cool, then we have even less that we have to like automatically budget based on our zero budgeting, where we go, oh well, the military absolutely needs this, right? No, we can reduce that amount that we think that the military needs in our zero-based budgeting with priority spending. Or if we keep the same system, even if we keep the same system, which is a terrible idea, but say we did, we could reduce spending across the board, including the military budget, and you can reduce the military budget without impacting our national defense by bringing home most of the military, having them defend our borders and our coasts. That's the way, that's the path moving forward. That's what I think. All right, let's see here. What else? We need to repay the Social Security Fund because we have a debt to the Social Security Fund. We need to pull it out of the general fund. We should not be borrowing, stealing money from the Social Security Fund to fund other things and then have a debt to the Social Security Fund. You know, that was never the intent, although it started pretty soon after the Social Security Fund was created, and we've never had it invested the way that it should have been. If it had been invested, we wouldn't be in the situation where we are now, where it's going to become, there's not going to be enough money to fund the Social Security Fund. If we had invested it, then there'd be more than enough. In fact, probably literally more than enough, and that money could then be used to fund other things if there actually was a surplus in the Social Security Fund. That's a possibility. You could possibly take the surplus in the Social Security Fund and apply it. However, having it as a oopsie in case, you know, there is a market decline, because sometimes, you know, even if you do safe investing of, you know, your, you know, say mutual funds or whatever, your safe investments, there's still a possibility where there are some periods of time where there will be dips, and so if you have a surplus, you just apply it to the dip and you're fine. That's what I think. I think keep them as two separate funds altogether. Anyways. And then also, you know, you can give people the right to pull out, I would say a certain percentage. I wouldn't say 100%, just because, you know, we do want to make sure that if you are left with nothing, that there is some way to take care of you, and we don't have to resort to what Canada has resorted to, which is the, you know, just telling old people that they should just commit suicide. We want to be able to take care of people in that last ditch effort, so maybe leave a certain percentage in there just in case, right? But you should be able to take out a certain percentage of it as long as you are investing it in some other sort of investment. You know, if you have your own retirement account, you don't need Social Security. And so you can take your money, you can invest it in your own 401k, your own retirement account, and that would be fine. I think that is something that should be allowed, but we have to do the other things, otherwise it will just cause the Social Security Fund to not be able to sustain itself even quicker if we do that without fixing the other problems. So there you go. All right. Eliminate most of the bureaucracy, including things like the Department of Education and FBI. I think that the government could be reduced drastically, and a lot of things that the federal government does, the states should be doing, or no one should be doing. So let's move forward with that. Let's start eliminating huge aspects of our budget by getting rid of these huge bureaucracies. Yes, even the Department of Education, because it has shown itself to not be successful. And so getting rid of the budget that would go to it, and or and just returning it to the states and letting the states handle their own education, and their local municipalities handling their own education is the best path moving forward. All right, election reform. Election reform could be so simple. It could be so simple. We have a government issued ID that's issued to every registered voter, free of charge. Not something. I mean, it's not going to be free. The government's going to have to pay for it at first, but I'm okay with that. But we're not going to make people pay for it. We're going to issue it out. You get one. Okay, so there's certain people are not able to afford to have their own IDs, and so that it's racist to require IDs because certain people can't get them. That's stupid. It is stupid, but also we could just negate that argument altogether and just issue these out. And then anytime someone registers to vote, a new person, when they hit 18 and they register to vote, they are issued one of these IDs. These are government IDs. So let's say you're one of these people that doesn't have a driver's license or state identification. Now you will have one, right? And now, you're using it to vote, but maybe you use it to do other things, right? So this is like a free government ID. You guys should be excited about this, right? Being able to have a free ID issued out to everybody. Come on, that's beautiful. That fixes that problem, right? Then, let's see here. We should have a federal holiday for the election. There's zero reason why someone should not be able to vote because they have to work. I think that having a federal holiday on an election is the best answer to that problem, because say some people want to expand voting, instead of being an election day, it's an election week or election month or whatever the heck. No, I don't think that that's a good idea at all. We're going to get into that a little bit here. What I think is it still should be one day, but if everybody has a federal holiday, and that's everybody, so you can't go to McDonald's and get your McDonald's that day, or maybe you could, it'd be a federal holiday, but you would have time to vote before or after. But more than likely, federal holiday, most people are not going to need to work, and some people will need to work because like air traffic controllers and whatnot. But you would have you would definitely be given the window to be able to vote. And then most people would just have a free day to be able to vote. They could take their time throughout the day. Anyways, federal holiday for voting, I support that. Mail-in ballots. So mail-in ballots can still be a thing, but mail-in ballots should be requested in advance. And I'm not even putting limitations on that, right? You can request a mail-in ballot regardless of your circumstances. So you request a mail-in ballot in advance. You prove your identification when you request the mail-in ballot. You got to, same thing. You got to present an ID, request a mail-in ballot. They'll mail it out to you. You only have one address. They're mailing it to that one address. And then we won't have to worry so much about that being an issue, or people trying to do mail-in ballots at the last minute and that sort of thing, or sending mail-in ballots out to people that are no longer living at that address, or no longer living at all, no longer with us, those dead voters. So you have to request it in advance, and then it should be a requirement that it's mailed in, let's say 2 weeks prior to the election day. It has to be postmarked. We'll just say 2 weeks, but maybe that length of time will change. But you require that it's mailed in, postmarked prior to the election, and that it's counted prior to the end of election night, so that everybody's votes are counted at the same time, and so we're not having this mystery jump of just exactly how many votes you needed. No, it all has to be counted at the same time, and that's part of why I don't think that we should have a election spread out over a week, because basically, like, oh, it's looking like this candidate's winning, we'll just say that more votes came in for the other candidate on Friday. You know, no, no, we don't want to see that happening again. We want all the votes counted at the same time, and we want a quick result to the election that doesn't look like it has time for them to plan out how they're going to cheat the numbers. All right. So no limitations on your mail-in ballots. You can vote mail-in. You just have to present your ID. You have to be at the address that you requested. Only one mail-in ballot, and you have to mail it in a couple of weeks in advance so that it can be counted on the day of the election. Yeah, I don't want to keep you from voting mail-in. Here we go. All right. And so if you do all of these things, we should be able to clean up our elections pretty solidly. All right. And then we can't eliminate political parties due to freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, but we can remove them from the election process. The political parties can endorse whoever they want, freedom of speech, but they should have no say over the debates. They should not be able to say, oh, only these two political parties get to debate. They should not have their political parties listed on the ballots. That should not be a part of the election process. We should not be all like, I'm voting for the Republican or I'm voting for the Democrat. No, you're voting for Donald Trump. You're voting for Kamala Harris. Sure, most people will know what political party that they're being endorsed by, but it doesn't need to be on the ballots, and people should have to actually take the time to educate themselves about who they're voting for. Voting for the political party is dumbing down the process. So we need to get that out of our elections, and that will help fix this country. So these are the things, and there's more, I'm sure, but this is a long video. It was a long post. I'm going to move on. We're going to end this video now. It's stuff that is very important to me, and hopefully it's very important to you, especially if you're still watching right now. And yeah, we'll talk about more solutions later. All right, everybody, take care. Have a good day.